Hi. So this is on how to have correct technique with a 3-section staff. A 3-section staff is one of the most complex weapons in the whole world. It has 3 different parts. It has this part, it has this part, and it has this part. And these 3 rigid parts are connected by 3 flaccid parts, which means they only interact through tensile forces. So they're only connected when they get pulled too far apart. If they're not too far apart, then they're not connected. You know, and they don't really ever connect that way. That's like hard to do. It doesn't, like, it can happen, but they don't really connect like that. And then if they do connect like that, it's unstable. So this way of getting the 2 staves to connect could be thought of as a homosexual behavior. And like, you can do it, but it's not the purpose of the staff. So trying to get these staff communicate with each other, these would be the yang or the rigid, which is cool, right? It's cooler than like this would be the yin, is the staff, this tensile part with no compression part. Okay, there's no compression part to the yin. Even when it does it, this is pulling. The 2 things are pulling on each other. That's the way that they can actually interact this way, is through mutual pulling via the chain, and this is pretty stable. If I do it this homo way, where I try and put the 2 hard things together, there's not really any use to it. It doesn't work, and eventually it just collapses back into that. So, but with this way, I can actually push on them, and it's a real object. Like, so that's a way that they can interact, is through that pulling, right? And the other way they interact is this way. So once they get pulled too far apart, there's a yanking. And then actually, once they get pulled too close together or past each other and maintain orientation, there's also a pull back. And so the 3 parts are connected that way. So you have the hard thing, the yang, the yin component pulling, feminine, masculine, feminine, sort of masculine again, hard, feminine, and then hard again, right? And so you would go, Kurt, what's the correct technique with this thing? What do you do? What do you do with this weapon? What do you do with this thing to have the correct technique? And basically all it is that you have to be swimming, like the thing has to be swimming, right? So you feel it, and that swimming is like this thing pulls on this thing, and that pulls on that. And so the whole thing is connected via that yang force. So you have the three compressive forces, and the compressive forces can push and pull and really do anything. They can kind of pull, but they can't change their shape at all, right? This is stuff simulating what I'm talking about. It's the space. It's not this. The yin part that I'm talking about in the staff isn't the chain. It's not the chain. The chain is expressing it. It's this relationship here where it's free to move around and bound together and sort of encompassing, you know, everything, right? So, and this is just definitely what it is. I'm just talking about the stick here, and then this is the relational je ne sais quoi again, right? So you use that relational je ne sais quoi, like you're basically controlling the weapon from the chains, right? Which is the whole space, right? It's a gesture towards openness, the joints, and that gesture towards openness is a gesture towards like the space of consciousness itself, right? So your awareness and your presence with being right here, which is all the space that you feel around you. that is what is connected to the chains, or that's what's connected to the joints. And really the sticks too, right? So what's correct technique is being in that mind state, and that's swimming. It's just dance flow, right? So this thing is cool because it's like with a normal stick, you can kind of, like there's a difference between like just flailing it around, right? I'm kind of almost doing the same thing, but this joint right here is not active at all, right? I won't swim this one. Same technique, right? I'm not swimming that in. And then if I incorporate it, right, it's just a little bit different, I'll stop. You can get it to look exactly the same. So you can't point at any of this stuff with like the words or with the action or the technique that you're doing, right? But you can feel, is this thing swimming or not? Like there's a big difference between me doing these movements and keeping it swimming than there is just to do it. And it's kind of like the difference is like it's exactly like the efficiency that people have when they're swimming. How good is their feel? Like, what does it mean to have a good water feel? So it's like, what does it mean to have a good feel for your consciousness? And then how dense is your attention? Like how dense, like how buoyant is that your attention? And usually the younger you are, the more buoyant you are. Like way younger people, they're hydrated more. Like people that are hydrated, healthy people that are like have this like the correct type of fluidic pressure, lighter, things are easier for them. It's easier to get up out of bed, it's easier to do handstands, it's easier to do anything. It's easier because there's just more, what that means is the density of their attention is higher. And the density of their attention is water. It's the fluidic, like the centering in being. The more somebody's centered in their water, their attention, the more like weightless and go with the flow and whatever they are. And we basically dry out as we get older. It's like you start out as just pure water and then kind of recede away and leave behind a structure. But so you can find that really easy with the 3-section staff by just knowing that, oh, what's the correct technique there? I need to be swimming it. And so to be swimming, to be in the flow state, your consciousness has to be complete and totalizing so that it creates a surrounding medium within which you can float. Which means be available to be moved by energetic currents like your metabolism. For something to move, it has to be surrounded with a particular energetic density. So even when you if you kick a ball or move something, the only reason it's moving is because you're putting a ton of energy into the outside of it. And then that makes it float. It changes its density. So people see that as inertia or movement, but it's basically just a buoyancy towards a direction or a polarization charge. So when you are focused, you actually become charged, and that charge is like water is charge. So if you submerge something in water, it's lighter because the charge around it is denser. So as you increase the charge around your body, you become lighter, exactly like an object submerged in water is, which is just it's the energy of your attention. The energy of your attention functions exactly like water. So everything you do is not gonna exactly be like swimming, but swimming will make sense of all of it. Because it's like imagine you're a creature and the field around you is increasing in density. How fast does that have to be for you to notice it? Versus how slow can it be where you just like, oh man, suddenly like I'm heavier. Right, as people are moving forward in time, the density of the space around them is slowly evaporating. Right, like a haze. Like that's why you can't see anything when you're a baby. It's like your attention is so dense you can't see past that thing, and as your attention becomes less dense, you start to be able to see further and further and further. Like everything starts to die, but also the veils start to thin as well as you get older. So you just start to be able to see things that you couldn't see because they were like clouded by the fog of your life force. Which, if you can like catalyze it and get it to harmonize and behave like the biosphere of the earth, you can like see very far because the energy is like flowing around it in a different way. And that's just the you know what the main cycle of life is like. Right, we're all born and we collapse or die into this same world. Like everybody is becoming this. You start out in this like youthful haze of individuality, but then in the end of it, you become this as that delusion dries out. What?